There is no right way to play. I dislike this statement. I think it is actually total BS. And let me explain why. But first, we're going to fix it with only one word. There is no one right way to play. What am I talking about? I'm talking about music. I create music. I'm Robert Monroe. I like to make a lot of content featuring the piano because that's kind of my main instrument. But in reality, I love discussions about music in general. And when we fix the statement with there is no one right way to play the piano, we are addressing something that is very, very common, which is a certain level of hubris that comes with online content creators and online musicians. And the reason why this exists is because of the way that you persuade people of your opinion. If you start from a nuanced place where you're trying to discuss the pros and cons of different things, you find that you lose people in the weeds before you actually get them to commit to anything. But if instead I say, I know the right answer, I know the one way that you're going to get really good at piano, immediately I've hooked you. Whether I'm right or wrong, you're interested, you're curious, because I'm promising something that actually cannot be promised. But let's get into addressing why saying there is no right way to play the piano or play anything, there is no right way to play, is such a crappy statement. The first thing that I would say is, fundamentally, this is incorrect because there are obviously more easier ways to play the piano or play an instrument and less easy way. If I try to use my elbows, is that a way I can play? And is there a place where that might be worth it? Absolutely. For example, there are some people, amazing musicians, that are handicapped in some way. Perhaps they've lost their hand. They're using other parts of their bodies. It's incredible. But I can tell you right now, if you have your fingers, use your fingers to play the piano. It's going to be so much easier. And so that leads me to, there's definite wrong ways to play an instrument, to play something. There are less efficient ways. There are ways that are going to potentially cause injury. There are ways that are going to lead to an inferior sound. There are ways that are going to wear you out more. There are ways that are going to take longer to learn. You really want to do those? No, you want to do the things that are tried and true, that people have spent hundreds upon hundreds of years of cultivating, that lead to predictable outcomes that are superior. Now, how do you get to those methods though? How do you determine if they're the right ones for you? Well, that's where goals are important. Because what are you actually trying to accomplish? If you're just trying to learn how to play pop music really well, yeah, there's probably a little more validity in being hypercritical of people who are like, you must curve your fingers at exactly this and yada, yada, yada. Who cares? It's actually the threshold of playing a chord is so low if you have normal human strength that you can have a variety of piano techniques and it'll be fine. Same with playing a keyboard versus a piano. If you're playing the piano, the acoustic piano, it requires a great deal of physical strength with your fingertips, meaning certain techniques are not going to be possible. People play a lot of times with like their knuckles cracked like that. If you're playing only on the keyboard, you might be able to get away with it. And the truth is you may even be able to get away on acoustic piano. But ultimately, this is such an inferior shape of strength when it comes to pushing down keys, you're probably going to struggle with that. And I'm probably clarifying and couching my statements too much. It's just generally bad. Now, can I say it's 100% universally bad? No, that's why I said there is no one right way to play the piano. There are many right ways to play the piano, and some are better than others. That would kind of be the full statement if you really wanted to talk about it. If, on the other hand, you wanted to play Rachmaninoff, Liszt, well, guess what? You probably want to study from people who studied from people who studied from people who were taught by Rachmaninoff, Liszt, etc. Because these people know specific things. Like one of them that I wasn't aware of is you talk about really amazing piano players. This is what you're seeing. All this other stuff is just to set that hand up to be doing this. Because guess what plays the piano at the end of the day? Your finger. And guess what that means? You're going to have big old arm muscles. You really are. That is an essence of a very common style of technique that's very successful. Is it possible to play the piano not in that way? Of course it is, but I'm telling you, it works. Let's actually say for just a second that this is right. And it's all subjective, because that's ultimately what this statement is saying. You have, on the one hand, a very objective viewpoint, which would be there is only one right way to play the piano. That would mean that this is not art anymore. There's no subjectivity about it. You can either be right or wrong. That's what it means to be objective. There's a solid thing there, right? This is an object. And so it exists. It's not a subjective thing. We can't debate about whether there's a phone here. There's a phone here. Well, I guess if you're a philosopher, you can debate anything. But let's put those people aside. If we say it's subjective and that there is no right way to play, why study music then? Does anything really matter at that point? And the answer is no. You can play the piano however you want. And in the one sense, that's very freeing. But think about it for a second. Can you learn from anyone else then? And the answer is no. If it's all the same, if everything's exactly the same, then you can't actually necessarily learn from anyone else, because it's not going to necessarily make you better. So what's your motivation? I personally would prefer to live in a world where I can learn from others because they know something that is better than I do. So in many ways, the right way to frame this entire thing is there is no one right way to play your instrument, and you should always be constantly curious to find people who have potentially different goals than you started out with, and so therefore discovered something unique and interesting that can help you become a better musician. I hope this was helpful. I'm Robert Monroe. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, it super helps, and until next time, you have a great day.